Our next session, Ash Gupta has spent about 40 years at American Express. He's something of a legend in the industry. He is in charge of credit risk globally for American Express, and he is here today to discuss credit risk and basically all of the different components of what they do. And he is going to be interviewed by his former colleague Manush Gupta. So could you please put your hand together for Ash Gupta and Manush Gupta? There you are. I was wondering where you were. Thank you. Okay. Excellent. Very much. Yes.
I think I wanted to introduce him myself too. I have worked with him for more than 20 years now. He's Ash Gupta, I'm Manish Gupta, and there should be no confusion. First as a strategy consultant, and he was a client, then as a leader of mine for many years at American Express. And I can certainly say that I've learned almost everything I know about credit and fraud from him. So I thank Lendit that we've created such a forum so that you all can get some of the learnings, where he's worked for almost 40 years, and it's very hands-on experience leading credit and fraud for American Express through multiple economic cycles. I also know that he is an early innovator in big data and analytics. In fact, as early as 1989, he was very involved in using artificial intelligence to develop the first fully automated POS decisioning system. What you take for granted now, the swipe of the card, that completely was a big game changer. He was very involved in that. So thank you, Ash, for being here.
Thank you.
So let's start with an easy question. I know that you yourself in American Express has invested a lot of time and effort in new big data technology, machine learning, open source. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Data is in our DNA. Everything we do is with data, with analytics. We have the big closed loop system that produces millions and millions of pieces of data. Our big data journey started just after the recession, where we needed to improve our capabilities. And at this time, we have about 1,500 data scientists spread across multiple geographies. And they work on all sorts of our businesses, whether they are credit risk, servicing, or designing marketing programs and commerce. And three things that big data has done well for us. It has improved the quality of our models in a very large way. One example of it is how we manage fraud, how we control fraud. We're going through $1 trillion of sales at point of sales that comprises of 5 to 7 billion transactions. And we're analyzing them in 2 milliseconds and producing answers at levels faster than anything else and at fraud rates lower than anybody else. The second area that big data has done a good job for us is that we can build models at a quicker pace than we could ever build. And this is especially important when we're building response rate type models, where we can launch a program, we can read it quickly, and we can adjust the program at a very quick pace. And third area is that there were lots and lots of places where we just could not use science, because computer power did not exist and open source did not exist. And this is where we make specific offers to our card members based on their buying and paying patterns. And big data has allowed us to look through these vast troves of data and make very pointed offers.
So in this journey, I'm sure there have been missteps, challenges, wasted money. It would be very helpful if you could give some tips of what were the learnings that you got from it.
Well, when we started, basically our models were all regression type, stepwise regression type models, and they were honed quite well. And when we launched the big data machine learning type techniques, we could not produce models that were of better quality than our existing models. The second area that we faced was that as we would build a model, it would weaken very quickly with time. And we had to solve for that. The third part was that we would add this data into a machine learning algorithm, and we would not know the cause of why the model is saying A, B, or C. Because for us, it's very important that the model has sufficient transparency and that we can describe to the customer exactly the reason we are taking for the action that we have. So those were 3 weaknesses that we found. And for us, it was that we needed a lot more collaboration with technology providers, with marketplace innovators, with big data experts around the world, and build up our own strength as we try to resolve them. And there are 3 things that came to us. They range around data, they range around capabilities, and people. And when it came to data, the most important thing for us is that data comes with responsibility, that data comes with permissible use, that when we're using the data, we need to make sure that we have implicit approval from the customer and the data is being used for the good of the customer. And customer privacy here is central to everything that we try to do. In the analytics front, what we needed most was to centralize all our data, centralize all our capabilities. And this way, the best of capabilities could be brought to bear on our system. But democratize the use. So the use of this data, the access of it, is all over our system. And that way, innovation can happen at a very grassroots and on multiple fronts and across multiple functions. So that was the second thing that we had. The third part was, as we were just adding the data was becoming landfill, and it was sort of, we had clear judgment up front, and it was sort of clouding our judgment. And what we needed most here was to make sure that as we are adding diverse forms of data, we are adding it in the right ecosystem. We're building technology at the same time. We're recruiting talent, and we are training talent at the same time, so that the 3 of them are synthesized well to produce the greatest outcomes. And talent was a big challenge, and the way we solved it was just going through multiple geographies around the world and choosing people of very diverse backgrounds and bringing them into our system and just learning from them and training them and adjusting our culture so we could create a winning franchise.
So as we go into big data, machine learning, more advanced artificial intelligence, is the age of automated cars. Are humans going to be needed in the credit industry?
Contrary to general beliefs, where people believe that machine learning will take over the world, I remain of the view that machine learning will not be the central reason for competitive differentiation from one company to another. The reason behind it is that once an algorithm and once a mechanism to do machine learning develops, it gets very quickly commoditized because lots and lots of startups develop that sort of commoditize their learning, and it no longer remains as a source of competitive advantage. In the end, the quality of data you have and the quality of people and the intuition you have becomes the source of differentiation in this business. You know, you've all heard the chess example, that the best computer can defeat the best chess champion. However, a good computer and a good chess expert can defeat the best computer and the best chess champion. And therefore, a focus on this entire ecosystem that comprises data, machine learning, and people becomes central to this exercise. Machines are very helpful. You know, don't get me wrong here, Manish, that machines are helpful because they can synthesize large volumes of data in a very systematic way. You know, we get customers write to us, and if we want to read all this mail, the natural human biases get over, and we can't read it as intelligently as a machine can read this data. So you can analyze large volumes of data. The question is that, is the analysis sufficient as an end product? And the way, let me give you an example. You know, we have customers that are typically low exposure customers by which we've used machines to sort of determine their line sizes and exposure limits based on all sorts of factors. And we have customers that are spending a lot of money. We have large wallet and high exposures with them. We've gone through a mix of machine and manual underwriting, and we are tracking their financials. And large exposure customers generally are less risky for us than small exposure customers. So when we put this math into a machine learning model and we look at a given customers and we try to simulate how the risk will be as the exposure rises, The machine learning math says that as exposure rises, your risk will decrease. It almost produces an opposite answer of what is truly a logical question. And that's where we come back and say that innovation in data, innovation experience of human mind will always be a bigger driver of success than machine learning itself. So I give importance to machine learning, Manish. I give a lot of importance, but I don't think of it as something that will eliminate the human instincts.
Thank you so much for that. So we will have a job. Well, this room probably has a lot of the innovators in marketplace lending and fintech, and you've seen them develop over the last 10 years. What do you think of the journey that they have been on?
I think that all of you innovators in this room, you've done a tremendous job. You've done a tremendous job in serving the society, in providing loans at very economic prices, in a very timely fashion, and to a very broad array of people. It has to be good for the society, and it has to be good for driving the economy further. What I admire is also broad areas of innovation that have happened in this place. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, one could not imagine offering a credit product in 60 seconds and not affecting adversely the bureau. This all came through this experience. The customer experience, the habit of asking relevant questions, even if you're asking a lot more questions that are logical to the other person, it has been a tremendous job done in that area as well. And the ability to automate this entire process and the ability to scale up in a big way has been a tremendous exercise as well. Another area that I find is that very diverse sources of information, very diverse sources of data, whether they are from checking account or merchant type data or authorizer.net type data, all sorts of data have been very intelligently synthesized to have a full profile of the customer. To make the most intelligent decisions. And they're helpful to the borrower, they're helpful to the investor, and they're helpful to the startup as well. So I feel very, very good about the essence of this innovation and where it's headed. Manish, I do believe that as good as we still have a long runway ahead. As innovations happen in technology, as innovations happen in this entire ecosystem, you'll find that 10 years from now, this will be a far larger business than it is today.
But when you're viewing it from American Express's lenses, do you see them as friend or foe?
I see them both. So I see them, we are here to actively compete, but we are here also to actively collaborate. Things that we do well as a company, we have lots and lots of liquidity at very economic prices. So we can fund these loans in huge volumes and at very economic prices. We also have very good longitudinal experience as people. So we've gone through multiple economic recessions, we've gone through good economies, and we have scars to prove that, and we have learnings to prove that. So when we think of these businesses, we think of them over long periods of time. We don't think of them in a very transactional fashion. We also have tremendous knowledge and expertise across this entire journey. So we understand how underwriting works well. We understand how people and models interact and how it should be turned into collection process. So we have an end-to-end understanding of this entire process. And as I described earlier, we are investing heavily in decision science around the world. And we're carrying data. We just have a large volume of customers, and that we carry data uniquely about their buying and spending pattern. Banks carry data about their checking and savings and mortgage customers, far, far more comprehensive than anybody could have. And so that data and this longitudinal understanding of the data creates massive advantages for large financial institutions. But my judgment in the end is that marketplace lenders are innovating in a very beautiful way. We are innovating, and if you sort of think of it as a Venn diagram, and if you put the two together, you say the combined effect is a tremendous job for the customer. Because our thinking is that what you're doing, you have to think, how is it good for the customer? And how is it good for the economy? And the synthesis of these two does a magnificent job for our customers. So that's how I think about our synthesis. Let me ask you some thinking. You were a consultant. You worked with American Express. I would say I benefited from your wide array of innovations, challenging thinking. You're off to this new world now. You're off to thinking how to use that knowledge in serving the broad arrays of this ecosystem, both borrowers and funders, through your new business. So tell us your thinking. Tell us where it is headed.
Well, I think I've worked in large financial institutions and got the chance to innovate and launch things there. But when I've stepped out, and it's been only 6 months, as you know, I've found that the pace of innovation and the kind of thinking going on in the fintech industry and marketplace industry is just phenomenal. I mean, I knew that when I was in American Express, but now I'm going there more deeply. And I must say that one of the things that they have done is catalyze a lot of large companies to innovate faster, just to keep up with them. And I do agree with you that the fusion of experience, especially when it comes to credit and money flow, and fintech will probably create the next stage, next innings of innovation. If I were to think about where this would be applicable, having seen both sides, first, you mentioned customer experience. I think customer innovation has been key with marketplace lenders. But to really be Uber-like, to really change the game, you have to think about how will you develop a wider array of credit products so that you are meeting or fulfilling unmet needs and creating more organic demand so that the pie is growing and move further from primary debt consolidation, et cetera, which is just moving money from one or the other. But I'm sure that's going to come. And if that happens, then this industry could go tenfold very, 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 very fast. And then it'll create the other necessary innovation, which I believe is on the supply side, where truly this has been a very disruptive force, because for the first time, non-banks have been able to get in and invest and supply to borrowers. But if it has got to go to that level, when it goes to a few hundred billions, then suppliers which have competitive cost of funds to banks, like insurance companies, pension funds, foundations, will truly have to get into it in a big way. Not just small alt allocations or going through hedge funds. They'll truly have to understand how credit is managed through the cycle and how do you invest in an asset. And so the venture that I'm launching, just for 2 seconds on his Corridor Funds, is addressing the second need, where we are building a platform which is a good mix of technology, analytics, but has a very experienced credit team that have underwritten and managed at very large banks for multiple cycles. And our hope is that we can give confidence to the large suppliers to invest in marketplace lending in big ways. Yeah. And that would certainly be the big boom that I look forward to.
Yeah, I think that getting people to invest in new asset classes is going to be a real challenge for those investors. And they, in my judgment, they would need the expertise, they would need to trust the expertise of people developing this sort of technology, and that this expertise has also gone through varying economic cycles. So that, because these are long-term investors of very large pools of money. But it does have an unbelievable future. I think the business of lending can grow by multiples with innovations like this.
Maybe, Ash, we have 10 minutes left, and I think this industry has grown in probably some of the best times from a loss and in a kind of a benign environment, and that's really helped it thrive. And there have been tools people have been using for risk management, et cetera. But the value of true end-to-end risk management and long-term thinking and process that I know you've invested in, can you give the industry some tips on how do you manage large portfolios through recessions? Because that's when you really get tested.
Yeah. My experience, their own people, is that in good times, they believe that good times will stay forever. In recession, they believe recession will stay forever. They both overestimate good times and they overestimate the challenging times. And if you're adequately prepared in good times, you'll deal with challenging times well. Recessions are a natural outcome of an economic cycle. You can never predict when recession will happen and what the cause will be, and each recession has its own cause. But some of the learnings in my mind are very standard. And here they are. So, first part for us is that your brands are built in recession. That how you service your customers, in this example, borrowers and investors, and I don't mean in a legal sense, I mean in a very personal sense, how you serve these customers becomes central to the company you are and becomes a big insurance for your long-term survival as a business. The second area is that the economic reality is that lots and lots of companies will go out of business. There's no way to avoid it. And startups probably will face more volatility, but those that survive will become a lot more stronger than they were. So you have to decide, in your planning and so on, that you don't want to be the one that become weaker in a recession. The third area I've sort of come to believe is that there are lots of good opportunities in a recession. So if you're planned and organized well, because asset prices fall way below their true economic value. And if you're well prepared and well organized, you can do huge economic gain for your businesses. And I found for myself that the fundamental shift in our technologies happens in a recession because the system is steering and turning, and the wind is on your face, and you can build and test capabilities. One of the examples, and I know you were an instrumental part of this exercise, was just learning to think about the merchant financing business, which we thought through the recession, and we eventually launched it after the recession. We could sort of simulate what it would have done in a recession and how it came to bear. By the way, we have booth 421 on merchant financing. I was strongly ask you to come and join. And so capabilities develop and businesses develop. But all of this requires adequate preparation before the recession to be effective and valuable in this effort.
So now is a good time because I'm sure we are nearer, as you always teach, to the next recession than we are farther from the last. But what should all of the marketplace lenders be doing to prepare right now when times are still good?
Yeah, I think that you should not panic about a recession. You should prepare for a recession. And I would say that, whether you're borrowing or you're investing, you should sort of multiply your write-off rate by a factor of 3. And you should then judge on both sides, on all three sides of the equation, customer, the lender, the investor, that will you be able to function in an adequate fashion if the loss rates were 3 times. I think the second area is customer assistance programs that your products, your systems have flexibility, that if price has to be adjusted or if the tenor of the loan has to be adjusted or if some very customized adjustment to your program has to be done in time, that your process allows you, your technology allows you, your terms and conditions allow you to do that. And the expectation you're setting for each other allows you to modify your products in an intelligent way. Here is the thing that there is a strong tendency for people to do that I ask you not to do. That the day you start measuring the success of loan products by the volumes or by write-off rates looking in the rearview mirror, that is the day you will cause permanent harm to your business. Because the loan that is being given, the history is just a history. The loan that is being given is being given in a forward environment. And you should judge its economics in that forward environment. And you should do adequate stress testing in that environment. And to some extent, if you can sort of think through your products and you can sort of have some mechanism of pricing flexibility in your products, you might come out as better off. One of the things that matters to me the most is that make sure that in your business you have early indicators, that you're looking through broad swaths of population. And big data, machine learning are central here because small pieces of data can shed big time light into the oncoming adjustment in an economic environment, and that you're watching those indicators early and that you have a reasonable plan. I'm not looking for like a 1,000-page plan or something, that you have a reasonable plan and a reasonable belief that changes in economic environment will happen, and that will prepare us all for an economic weakness, and it will cause you to become a far more stronger business during a weak economy and after the weak economy. So that's where some of my thinking and advice comes to me. And I would say, Manish, that the most important recipient of that advice is me, myself, that I'm not here to speak to you things on what I myself don't fundamentally believe. So that's what we're trying to do here.
I think just to add to that, some of the learnings, the most learnings that I've had is when we've gone through the recession, and certainly the Great Recession, hopefully not the Depression. Great Recession was an amazing time to learn and develop new things, like you said. I think an example that pops up, which obviously we learned during that, is to be prepared. It's important to stress your models, stress your risk analytics, and stress your variables. Because in the age of machine learning, as you were saying, so many of the models are built just by running data through, but not thinking through the intuition of coefficients. And I always like to give the example of mortgages being such a strong variable in almost any model. If you just take the credit bureau data and predict well-being, higher mortgages always came up with a large positive coefficient. But in the Great Recession, they actually flipped signs. And people who had relied on that as a variable probably did very, very badly. But if you were intelligent about it, and I learned this mainly from you, is how if you created the right variable where you got external data and saw the value of a home and created a home equity variable, which is what's the current value minus your mortgage, and use that as a variable, that requires human intuition. No machine learning model is going to create that variable because the data is not even in the set. But you take the pane, and then that home equity variable has all the strength but doesn't flip signs, or if it actually predicts as the value went down. So those are the kinds of things I think are important.
Yeah. One of the areas we are investigating right now is looking at big data, machine learning type models. One good example is it's called stochastic gradient descent. And it allows us to sort of look at our gradient boosting machine models and tries to analyze the small changes in macroscopic environment and helps you steer that model as that change in the macroscopic environment is happening. And in the last recession, we used to have like a short-term adjustment based on the current economic environment in a very microscopic way. So machine learning is actually helping us to sort of steer this wheel in a more intelligent fashion. But again, preparation early on is a must so that the business remains a very sound business for long periods of time. So that's all I have, Manish. I sort of would just tell you my basic belief that if I sort of analyze our businesses, your businesses, 10 years from now, the businesses will be far bigger than they are today. But I do believe that not every player will be a participant in that exercise. But the market would become a lot bigger, and natural shakeout in this world would happen. So it's wise to sort of learn from good practices. It's wise to learn from experiences, and then it's wise to drive your business forward. So, good luck to all of you, and enjoy this meeting, and enjoy the innovation. You're definitely doing a great job for for the society at large and for the globe at large. And I feel very happy to be part of it.
Thank you so much, Ash.
Thank you.
Thank you.